Hey guys, it's Barratt with the Gimpy Camper. So today we're going to talk about an install of a vent fan. Now the issue that I have is with my camper, I did the RV armor roof. And right before I did the RV armor roof, I did install two Maxxair deluxe fans, one in my living room and one in the bathroom. I do have a third vent in our bedroom, and I've often wished that we would have installed another one. I will say that if I leave the living room vent on and we're boondocking and I just open that vent in our bedroom, that it does pull, fresh air down into that vent. But I wish that I had a fan there to just kind of help it a little bit along. And so because of that, I've been looking for different ways to install a fan. Now the issue is with my RV armor roof, if I want to add things, that's easy to do and it's endorsed by RV Armor. You can add things all day long, no big issue. But if you're going to have to get down and say remove this fan, so I'm going to have to remove some of that sealant, then they say that you have to have a service call and have somebody come out and help with this. Now, number one, that can be expensive. Number two, it can be weeks of time because they don't have somebody that you take your camper to right down the block. If you need something with RV armor, RV roof armor, they dispatch someone to your location to work on you. So because of that, it can be a while. It can be weeks, possibly a month or two. So because of that, I've kind of been on the lookout for something different. I did run across this Hengs Vortex 2 fan, and I thought, well, that would work great for my needs because what it is an upgraded fan. A lot of RVs come with a little bathroom fan. It's got a little dinky, like 3-inch fan in it. And this is what that's made to actually replace. But you don't have to do anything on the top of the camper. So you don't have to mess with any of that sealant or anything like you do when you install a Maxxair fan. And so it is an easier install. And so I decided last night, and I've had this fan for like 6 months. I decided last night, I was waiting on my wife to come back to the camper. I thought, I'm just gonna go ahead and do that because it looks like a pretty easy thing. I got the fan, I've been having to move it around from my kitchen counter to my couch to this to that for 6 months because it's just been sitting in the camper. And so because of that, I was like, let's just go ahead and get it done. Now, anytime we ever do any work on the vent area above the bed, we get like sawdust and stuff down on the bed. I don't know how it seems to multiply, but it seems to always be there anytime we remove the bezel. And so I did lay down another blanket to kind of catch some of that because before we've noticed, you find sawdust in the bed for weeks after. Now, the first step in installing this fan is to remove the either old fan if you have it or the vent screen. We did not have an old fan there, it was just a vent. However, I knew that there was power close by because it is pre-wired for a second air conditioner here in this area. And so I knew that means that there's 110 there, which I don't need, and there's also 12 volt because the air conditioner needs 12 volts as well. So the first thing that I did to take the screen out is I removed the 4 screws from the bezel from the inside, and then that just pulled down. And then you have to take a screwdriver and remove the screw from the knob that you use to turn and open and close the fan. So you remove the screw there and the knob just pulls out, and then that whole screen should just fall out. Next, I needed the power wires. So I removed the cover for the power wires. Now, obviously this box, it has a sticker on there that says like high voltage, blah, blah, blah. Number one, turn your breakers off when you're doing this so you don't have to worry about that. But it was kind of odd because there wasn't any screw holes. So I could see like an indentation of the sticker. So I took a knife and cut that sticker out, and that allowed the faceplate to fall off of this box. Now when I got the faceplate off of the box, then I went back and I took the screws out of the box because it's got the little wings on the sides that kind of hold the box in tight. And so when I was able to pull that out, and then I saw the 12 volt wires in there, which my wires are white and green, which is kind of the 12 volt wires that they use throughout the whole camper. So I knew that that was 12 volt wires. But mind you, I had already turned the breakers off in case I was making a mistake. And as usual, this is what I did. I'm just sharing with you what I did. I'm not a professional. Do at your own risk. All the things, you know. Don't blame me when something goes bad. So what I ended up doing is I use some quick connectors to splice in a couple of wires there, one for positive, one for negative. And I left them about a foot longer than I needed because I was going to have to fish them through a little bit too, because there wasn't any power wires up into the actual vent. Now this part was actually a lot harder than I expected it to be, because I thought, you know, I could just like push these two wires between the ceiling panel and the frame there, but they had a lot of glue on there, so I had to use like a large flathead screwdriver and stick in there to try to loosen that up a little bit. And finally I was able to get my black power wire to push through in that space. I wasn't able to get the other one through, but I did tape it to the black wire, and so then I used it as like a fish, and I was able to pull it through over the ceiling panel. Now after I got the wires through, I thought I needed to test this fan before I go through all this mess, and so I just kind of loosely got those 12-volt wires and hooked them up and put what I thought was the positive on the positive side and what I thought was the negative on the negative side, and turned it on. Now if you turn it on, this one, it being the Vortex 2, does have a reversible control. The Vortex 1 does not. It just has like a push on, push off. But because we wanted this to be able to suck air into the camper, I wanted the variable speed and I wanted to be able to reverse it. So when you turn it on, it should actually blow where it would be blowing air upward out of the vent. And then when you put it in reverse, it should be blowing air where it would be down on the bottom side. And since I saw that that was working correctly, I went ahead with my install. Now if it wasn't working correctly, you would know that because it would be reversed of the way that you had expected. So on the normal mode, it would be blowing air down into the camper. In the reverse mode, it would be blowing air out the top. In all actuality, it doesn't really matter, because you have the way to reverse it back and forth, and you would get used to that. But my OCD makes me want to do it right. So after I got that done, then it's about putting that up into the vent hole. That's really the hardest problem with all this. Number one, while you have everything off there, take a look and see if you need to tape anything up. My vent is made for a second air conditioner, so in my Cougar has, they call it a racetrack air conditioning system, and so it's like all the way around, and so you have a vent on both sides, and those are taped shut for a reason, because there's not an air conditioner in there to add more air in there. And so because there's not an air conditioner in there, what you need to do is to make sure that those are taped good, because you're going to be losing a lot of air conditioning there if they're not. And my tape was coming loose, so I retaped both sides of that. Shouldn't have any issues there, should make it more efficient. Now the hardest part to the fan install is getting the gear that raises and lowers the vent to mate up with the spot on this fan that essentially just goes over the top of that. And then you take a knob and you put it underneath the fan, and it just kind of connects all those gears together. My number one tip is that myself, in most every video that I saw, we had to move where the gear, the female gear is on the fan, to mate up with the other part that's built into the camper. When you got to move that further towards the side. And so you do this just by removing the two screws from the bottom that's holding that housing on. And you can see that there's two different areas where that gear can go. And so you remove those two screws and you just scoot it back a little bit. And that's all there is to it. Then when you're putting it up in there, you want to try to tuck all your wires and stuff so they're not in the way and they're not falling down on the actual fan itself, because that can be a mess too. The hardest part of all this was getting that gear to match up there. And so I did go ahead, and there's a screw hole on both sides of the fan. You put a screw through the fan and into that metal strip that goes across there, which is where that gear housing is mounted. And so on the opposite side, I went ahead and put that screw in just to hold the fan up a little bit. But I wasn't able to get that gear to mate up very well. I even put the knob in there and turned it a little bit because I was trying to not strip it out or whatever. But it actually took a little bit of brute force, which I always say not to use. I got kind of mad and just kind of banged up on it, and that allowed it to work. And so they got those gears to mate up together, and then I was able to get the knob put in there and it would open and close. So it works just fine. Now I added that second screw that I was talking about on the other side into that metal strip to hold it up. and then I put the bezel back in. You can do that or add the handle now. It doesn't really matter because it doesn't get in the way, but put the bezel in. So put the bezel up, pushed it up real good. Added those same 4 screws that I took out of it, put those back in, and then put the knob that controls the opening and closing, the new one that came with it, put it up in there and added the 1 screw to hold that on. Now that 1 screw that holds that on is going to be the 1 screw in the bag that it comes with that's a little bit different. It comes with 3 shorter screws and a longer screw. So it is going to be the longer screw that goes up in there. After I did that, tested it out again, and did the old tissue test with, you hold the tissue up and it sticks to the top, showing you that it's actually sucking air out of the camper. You know, hadn't had any problems with it. We're actually using it this morning because it was a little bit warm, but not really hot enough to need to turn the air conditioner on yet. But I got it more for off-grid camping, so we'll try it out for a while. I am actually going to add a Maxxair vent cover to the fan because I can also do that without messing up my RV Armor roof. And so essentially I was going with a similar setup to a Maxxair fan without actually having to get a Maxxair fan and do the install process there. But if you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that like button. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of our family. Be sure to hit that notification bell so you're notified next week when the video releases. And just thanks for following along, guys.
Do not forget to hit that subscribe button.